Now let me show you some other methods which we use while working with threads. So now whenever a thread is actually working, let's say, doing something in a loop or executing a number of lines of code, then we can actually make the thread sleep for some amount of time. So here what I'll do is I'll create another class other than, this thread demo. So I would write it to be thread demo 2. And this is again, going to extend the thread class for us. And now within this, again, I'm going to override the run method. So we have this, public void run. And in this, again, I'm going to have the same code. But now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make this sleep for some amount of time. So I'm actually going to make it sleep for a couple of milliseconds. And let's say, for example, I want to make it sleep for 2 seconds. So I would write 2000 milliseconds. And this is telling me to put it around try catch. So this is something which I would do. Now, actually, if I want to show this to you properly, I want to actually, sleep the thread within my for loop for some times. So within my for loop itself, I would want to call this thread.sleep, and I would not make it sleep for everything for 2 seconds, right? I would, let's say, for example, I would make it sleep for half a second, and I would run this particular piece of code for only 10 times now, and surround this around try and catch. That's it. So now this is something which I want to do even within my earlier run method. So I put this code over here as well. So now I have two classes. I have thread demo and I have thread demo 1, thread demo 2, and both these classes are something which I can work on within my main method. So instead of making it the T2 from thread demo, I would just use thread demo 2 over here. So now I have this particular thread demo T1 and thread demo 2 T2, and here again I would create a constructor similarly the way I have created earlier. Now we can definitely have two classes in the same file, and the first one is going to be the public class, which we have the name of the file as well, and this is going to have the main method, but we can have any number of more classes which we want, and we can have any number of threads. So I've just created these two threads, and now both these are actually going to work with sleeping for half of a seconds when I'm actually wanting to work on both of them. So now when I try to actually run this, just look at how the output is coming. Now the output is coming, at a duration of half a second, but then, two things at the same time, thread 1 and thread 2, both of them wanting the attention of the CPU after half a second of duration. So that's how, we have this 14, 15, 14, 15, 14, 15 alternatively coming off for us, after every half a second. Now, sometimes it may be that we do not want two threads to always work at the same time, together. We might want one thread to actually wait for another thread. So if I want to do that, I need to really use something known as the join method. So once I actually started T1, I can call T1.join, and what this would do is this would actually wait for us to complete this T1 completely, and then it's going to actually continue with something else. So when I run this now as you can see, only the thread 1 is going to run first, and until the thread 1 doesn't get completed, we do not have thread 2 working. Once we have this thread 1 complete, only then the thread 2 worked. And the reason for that is because we actually use the join method to make sure that this thread 1 is joined and completed first before doing anything else. So this is something which you really need to know when we are actually working with multiple threads and we want to do this inter-thread communication. So our main thread is actually going to wait for T1 to complete before going ahead and doing any other task. Even let's say, for example, if I had a particular sysout statement and this would say, thread 1 completed, this is going to get executed only once my entire thread 1 completes. So as you can see over here, my thread 1 is executing without letting anything else complete. And once thread 1 completes, only then, I have any other code working ahead. Now you can also create an anonymous thread. You don't have to actually name the thread and name the runnable instance, etc. What you could do is, let's say over here, once you have completed your T2, you want to create a new thread. So what you simply do is, you could simply create a new thread object by using this new thread operator, the constructor, and within this you have to pass a new runnable instance, right? So we would simply call the runnable instance using this particular method, and now what we'll do is we'll simply override the run method, and over here we could simply write public void run and then execute whatever we want within this particular new thread. So what's happening is that, we don't have to actually call this particular thread specifically. What I'll do is I'll simply do a sysout and I'll say anonymous thread running. That's it. And once this whole run method completes, then this thread will stop execution because it will get completed, right? Now, if I just go ahead and start this is not going to help me a lot. So you can see the output. I started it. The thread 1 is running. Thread 1 completed. Thread 2 is running. And now it just got terminated. We could never see this anonymous thread running. And what would be the reason for that? Can you guess? The reason is that we have not started this thread. So to start this thread, we could simply call the start method over here. And this is actually going to start the thread. Now remember that when we start the thread by calling the start method, the JVM, the operating system itself, is going to, find time from the CPU and then begin the run method. So we don't have to actually specifically call the run method. Just in case you might be wondering till now, we don't have to specifically call the run method. This would get executed as soon as, the CPU finds time while doing that. Now, since we have t1.join, this is not going to, wait until thread 1 gets executed. But as soon as thread 1 completes, our anonymous thread started running, okay? And then the thread 2 started running. So both these things is something which the CPU is going to run anyways. Now this started running before, just because, the program could find time with the CPU for this thread first, and then T2 started running. But that's fine, the whole point is that our anonymous thread is also running properly. So this is how we could create multiple threads and work with multiple threads together. Now, the next topic is very important while working with threads, and that topic really relates to something which is common between 2 to 3 or, multiple threads. And, it's actually working on a common resource, and how we would actually make sure that the common resource is actually not corrupted by any other thread working at the same time with any other thread. So that is known as synchronization, and let's look at that ahead.